It's real. It's real. You know the deal. You know the deal. Come on.
For either of you, why is there such a disconnect between this importance of really taking care when it comes to leadership development and profits and productivity? Like where have we gotten where people aren't seeing why those two things are connected?
Well,
I mean, go ahead, Shantae.
I think it's we see glimpses of it where it's starting to shift, but people are, we live in a capitalistic society, guys. So it's always about the bottom line. How much money are you trying to make here, right? So it's just cultural. A lot of it is cultural for us. And we don't live in a communal society here for the most part. It's very individualistic in terms of culture. So those two components, just in general, from a larger societal culture perspective, and then you just see microcosms of this and how it plays out in business. But I think it just stems from the fact of who we are as people in this kind of Western world. But that's just my.
I feel like it also just has to be said really explicitly that how we structure. When you think about the evolution way back, industrial age, right? We went from an agrarian community culture being very family focused, very communal focused, to working with machines. So like at best, most management is still coming from a very like manufacturing mindset. At worst, it's still influenced from slavery. And like, and most of the people who are in power are white men. And I know that people can get prickly about this. This isn't a judgment. It is cultural conditioning. Like one of the things that I've been really curious about recently, like in the last year, is culturally in Western American culture, most men are conditioned to not be relational. They are conditioned, this is not biological. It's not biological. They are conditioned that the worst thing you could do is to show any kind of intimacy. Boys don't cry. You are weak, right? Men build relationships. Typically, I'm generalizing, shoulder to shoulder. They're watching sports. They're playing video games, right? Like women, we tend to build relation. And I'm generalizing. I'm not saying that all women are great leaders and men aren't. Like that's not the case. But literally, the people who are in positions of power now have been largely, not all of them, conditioned to not know how to be in relationship with another person, to not know how to nurture another person. And the thing that I'm curious about is like, well, then why are we surprised that they don't know how to take care of them in the workplace? Because when I think about the leaders that I've been able to witness and observe, whether they're men, whether they're women, whether they're non-binary, right? Their identity, they have this beautiful combination of really loving the people and understanding the people, and they really understand the business. It's the like yin and yang of it. And so it's like, we're asking people who have largely I think about how many clients I work with who are men who I say like, well, like, talk to me about how that felt. And they're like, oh, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything below my neck. And it's like, damn, that sucks. And that like culture, and one more like point is by the time a man, and I don't know what the race breakdown is, but by the time an American man is 40, he will have 3/4 of a friend.
3/4 of a friend?
Because most men...
You can't even get one friend.
Can't even get a whole friend.
Right? Because this is why there's such an epidemic.
I want to look in our studio and be like, do our guys in here have more than one friend? But I think they're all under 40. So
they may.
Y'all have more than one friend? Do you have more than one friend? Yeah, y'all have friends? Okay, good. They all have.
But they're young guys again, so yeah.
And how do they engage with their friends? Is it together to get to like drink a beer and watch sports? Is it to like watch some event? Is it side by side?
I'm looking over because Santi, who we talk about a lot, who we love, he's a musician. So I know he jams out with his friends. What else? You do the game? You go watch games?
Yeah.
Yeah, but jamming out is interesting, because playing
football.
instruments, you're like turning towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
But how often are they talking about emotions? How often are they saying, I'm struggling? How often? And again, I'm generalizing. There are absolutely pockets of it.
But it's funny that you say that, though, because we always talk about the guys in our like age group who tend to be in that kind of 40 approaching 50-ish, range.
What?
Yeah, I'm telling you, listen, beautiful to age, guys. We're not putting any stigma on
Got all those years.
I'm still here.
But it's like those guys struggle because of, I think, what you're talking about, how they've been conditioned and raised to get to that point. But I really appreciate the younger gentlemen in the room are like, no, they have what feels like a little bit more emotional intelligence.
Listen,
they're able to
agreed.
tap into a little bit more, but the older ones, man.
You heard this story. My son is almost 16, and I'm not allowed to pick him up anymore because Shantae told me I was uncool picking him up from school. She did. She's like, does he want you to do that? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, do you want me to pick you up? And he's like, well.
That man is in high school.
I was going to say if he wants her to, but yeah, clearly not.
One of the times that I picked him up, which is not so recently, but it was his 9th grade year, his friends came out to the car. They were chatting with me. And one of his guy friends was like, oh, I love you, TJ. While they were leaving, I was like, oh my God, you guys tell each other that you love each other? He's like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I did not see that growing up, where my guy friends telling each other that they loved each other. Right. So I think we've really gone
way left, but hey, it's fine. We're gonna bring it back. But it speaks to that. The whole point of this is behavior change, right? So we understand that there's maybe external factors that are in the workplace or in wherever you are that are requiring you to show up differently.
Yes.
Again, not to your point earlier, and I'm really happy you said that. Not necessarily changing who you are, but it's in the how. How are you engaging?
Yeah.
How are you connecting with people? How are you relating? And so, with the people that call you, Sarah, like how do you work with them in order to, one, get them to see that change is required, and then work with them through whatever process, readiness, whatever it is to get them to make those changes?
Yeah, it's complicated because even just this conversation we've just had is to make shifts and changes to be able to show up more emotionally present with another human is super layered. It's a lot of unlearning, right? Some of it, I think, and again, I want to give props to my colleague, Teresa, because one of the things she's really brought into our work is, especially in corporate America, especially in high achieving individuals, we overvalue new skills. We overvalue new information, learning more stuff, and we don't value unlearning. Like, what do we have to unlearn in order to show up? What rules were we taught about how to engage with people? And so I appreciate, Shantae, you used the word readiness, because the reality is, and you all know this in your work, is we all are on a continuum at any given moment about our readiness for change. And I really love using literally the readiness for change model that came out of the work from addiction. Right? Like, are you pre-contemplative? You don't know you have an issue. You don't know you could show up differently. Are you contemplative? Like, because to that point, and what I wanted to capture, Shantae, why I was why I pulled my notebook out, is you said, people have this vision of what they want. They have this, they just don't know how to get there. And I think there's so many. Okay, I want to answer this a couple different ways, and then I want to share something specific that we have found to be valuable to help people navigate change differently. So first is a lot of people have made a lot of money selling the snake oil of how quick change is. 21 days to break a habit, 21-8, whatever. That's BS. That's bad. It's not science. It's some guy like that. None of that has been validated, or I was just meeting with this gentleman last night who really wants to be a motivational speaker. And it's like, people just need to think positively and like, they just need to get out of the way. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about systems of oppression. Let's talk about trauma. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about hormone changes in some of us. Let's talk about, right? Like it's just complex. And I think that one of the things that we struggle with is to understand that learning is such an intentional process and will likely be painful at times. Like when you talk about, like I think about my evolution. as a white woman who grew up in the Midwest, trying to become a more inclusive leader, that is not something I just attend a session. Like I have to have people who are willing to walk alongside me. And I have to be open to it, to see the world in a way that I haven't seen it before. I have to see the ways that I've silenced people in a way that I haven't seen before. And that is hard work. And so I feel like we have this culture of quickness in America, like the quick fixes, the fast hustle, and learning needs to be really, really intentional. And I think that like some of it is there, like organizations, we're constantly assessing, just like we are with coaching clients, who actually wants to make the change and how committed are they to the change? I know you've said you're committed, but like what? Help me see it. What are you doing? What are you willing to do? And the other thing that I'm curious to hear from both of you. I also don't think a lot of people know what it actually looks like to be self-aware. I don't think they actually know what it looks like to interrogate. And to be clear, I wasn't born with that. I'm still learning that. I go to a lot of therapy. I work with coaches. I surround myself, right? Like I'm constantly learning how to learn. And I think a lot of us we don't know what it even could look like to do the work. I'm curious to like what comes up for the two of you, like in your experience.
Gosh, wow. You said a lot that I love. And I will just say this quick fix thing is going to be, I mean, it is the thing that causes so much turmoil, inner turmoil in people because they were guaranteed something quick. It was supposed to be 21 days. I think the 21 days thing, the form of habit, is hilarious, by the way. Because it was like something we were all sold. And then you think something's wrong with you if after 21 days you don't have. Yeah. And I think this is the point. And I'm taking a long time to get there, but I'm going to get there, which is.
No, you're good.
It's not quick. So if someone is telling you it's quick, you should know they're lying to you, first of all.
Yeah.
And then you should also know that, for example, if after 21 days, you don't have some brand new habit, nothing is wrong with you, especially because we live in the world with all the layers that Sarah has mentioned, the traumas, the 50 different responsibilities, all those things. So you can add even more time because you're fitting learning in on top of a very heavy schedule. And what we've seen is that for people who are committed to change, and I love your framing of, are you really committed to change? Because my gosh, I can't tell you how many times we walk in and people are like, yes, we're here. Let's do it. We're changing. We're running. We're doing it. We're changing. And they're like, that? No, we don't want to do that. And you're like, hold on. We just spent like a whole year with you and you were all in and now it's time to do the thing and we're done. And it's like, because you don't ever stop. It's a journey that never ends. And I know that you talk about this in the healing process that it doesn't end, but I feel like it's analogous.
Definitely. I think it starts with this. Okay, so people get a sense that something isn't right. Yeah, like it starts with that little bit of that little, either that gut or that little thing in wherever you feel it in your body. That's like, man, I'm not getting what I need to get out of this situation, or people aren't responding. People don't like me, or they don't this, or I'm not getting the reaction, or whatever it is. It starts with that, but instead of people turning it and looking at, okay, so how am I showing up, or who am I being in this moment that's influencing this and having this result? It's the finger pointing that we talked about earlier. So the self-awareness, it starts with that. You already know something isn't right. You know, it's a vibe. We all pick it up. We all we all get a sense of the energy of other people and how unless you, again, people with certain, maybe autism or other things, cognitive things, may not be able to pick up on those cues, right? So that's a different thing. But if you are able to get a sense of that, that's something that you lean into, and then you got to get curious and you got to explore that. And that's where that self-awareness part starts. But that's a part of it. It's just increasing the awareness around that. Now, you're not even getting to the change part. It's just you're asking people to be aware that something needs to shift. And I think even in that part, it's really challenging for folks to even not only experience it and be aware of it, but then also acknowledge that this is, okay, right, I actually have to do something here.
Yeah. Sorry, real quickly, if I can respond to that.
Sure.
I love that. I love that imagery of like, you do feel like something's off. And that's absolutely true. Like, let's just talk organizations. That's absolutely true. And then let's also be real that there are organizations who say they need change because they feel like they need to be saying it, right? Like there's the moment, and I think like something that we've been trying to do differently to maybe get people to, again, like be self-awareness in a because it's not enough for us to say be self-aware if people don't know. Like here's a good example. I was working with a company and it was all like, we got to have more open conversation. We need to disagree. We need to have conflict, right? Everything they're hearing from leadership. And then part of the message was like, but don't bitch, moan, and whine, like pulling from another person's work. And I was like, so what is it? And so when I met with them, I was like, I hear this is important. Here's your watch outs. Is it that you want open dialogue, or is it that you don't want to be seen as autocratic? Is it that you want open dialogue, or you really only want dialogue that is comfortable for you? Is it that you want, right? It's like, let's be, because I love that. And I really love that visual, Shantae, of like, you feel something. Now let's like examine it and let's hold up that mirror. And let's be honest, sometimes people are saying they want change and they don't actually want change. They don't, you know, like you say you want to be a human first company, and yet you create videos mocking team members. Like, help me understand the disconnect. Like, and I think that, you know, when we think about self-awareness, I'm curious how you all approach and define it. And I really love the idea or the definition. And I don't know who initially created this, but I know that where I learned it was from Dr. Tasha Urich's work, or Urich, is it's a deep sense of knowing yourself, and it's a deep sense of knowing how other people view you, right? That's the impact. And I don't think, like her research actually shows most of us think we're better at this than we are. And we think we're better at, you know, like everyone says they're good at feedback. Everyone says they have an open door policy. Like I'm still waiting, and I don't know, I'll give this person $1,000 if they're like, you know what, actually, when people give me feedback, no, I'll eviscerate it. I don't want it. You know what I mean? It's like, or somebody's like, no, I want my door closed. I want to be in control. And it's like, you know, I appreciate your honesty. That's actually self-awareness.
It's funny. It's so funny because I actually said this, we have a client where one of the leaders is like, if you looked in the dictionary on like analysis paralysis, you'd find the person.
Oh, sure.
And finally was like, do you want people to think that you are a slow decision maker? And I'm like, it's okay. I'm not saying it's bad, but do you want it to seem like you're being an obstacle to things happening? If so,
love that.
I would encourage you to be transparent about it. I mean, there's a politically correct way of saying, I want this to be slow, because your team is perceiving that you're a block to things happening.
Yeah.
Is that the perception you're going for? Again, this is not us saying there's a right way. It's more just like, what is the actual way? Let's be real so we can stop wasting everybody's time. I know in talking to you a lot, we're not here just to get a check, right? We're here because we really enjoy this work. And you know, I mean, I think you have too, when we have situations where people keep saying, yes, I want to do it. And then they're just creating more harm. We're willing to walk away from those clients.
You bet.
Like, you're not going to, we have our own ethos, right? We're human centered, people centered always. And we mean it, right? Like, and then and really talking to people about what that looks like. But if you know that you have these ways about you, because that's to the self-awareness piece, where people are going to be like, oh gosh, every time I have to deal with her, I know it's going to take. Cool. Like, and if there's certain pieces of it that's helped you be successful because of it, own it, but be transparent with people about it. I think that's a lot of where this comes, is that it's hard for you to be transparent with people. It's hard for you to actually have an open door policy, which I would like to rip that policy out of everybody's handbook.
Yeah, same. I hate it.
Because it's like, the door might be open, but if you're not doing the work to help people feel like they can cross the threshold, it does not matter. You might as well close the door. Yeah. But that aside.
Well, okay, wait, one quick point to that. It's also very passive. If you're the leader, you need to be getting out of your office.
Right. You're the leader. You
reactive.
Get them and pull them in. They're not building that trust or that psychological safety. You just saying, yeah, no, my door is open. Okay. Energetically, it's closed.
Yeah, come to me. No, go to them.
Yeah.
Go to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the last question I have, just because I know I can only imagine how Much.
But I have a response to what you said. Can I just like, you said something so beautiful.
Like, wait, no, teacher. I have something.
No, I know. Because I'm like bursting at it.
I feel like I love that reframe of naming. Here's the impact you're making. Are you actually okay with that? And if you are, then own it and articulate it. I just want to make sure that's not missed, because I think there's so much power to it. And then one of the ways, when we think about, one of the most powerful ways we have found to make movement for people who might be struggling is not, what are you going to do differently? Like, you have your vision. Now I want you to interrogate it. Now I want to understand, what are you doing that's getting in the way of it? What are you doing that is actually an act of conflict? What's your foot on the brake? And this comes from the work of Immunity to Change, which I really love, from Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy out of Harvard. But what is the foot on the brake? And then let's examine, what assumptions are you making that's actually keeping that behavior in place? So, like, here's a quick example. I need to work on my listening always, because I get eager and I want to be like, no, wait, hold on. I want to listen to you, but you're right. And when I really interrogate it, one of the things I do is I interrupt people. And some of that's my ADHD, like, I understand that. But when I really interrogate it, there are times when my fear is, if I don't interrupt, I won't be heard. That's an assumption I'm making. If I do not understand that, like, if I'm not willing to examine what am I doing that's getting in the way. And so apply this to culture. We were working, I have to be careful about how I share this. So let's just say hypothetical. No, I already said it's somebody we're working with, but you're doing something that's unproductive. You're doing something that's even actively harmful, to say, you say you value family, but actually what I see you value is protecting abusers. Is that what you value? Because your behaviors are showing me that that's actually your culture. And so it made me think of that with that example you shared, which I loved. Also, I just want to give you your flowers. I loved hearing that process for you. Okay, sorry, continue.
Oh, but we can't, because we're at that point where I hate to say, okay. So Sarah, we knew this when I was on your podcast. There's a lot of love here. So we'll definitely be back. But what I really want, because what I do think that would be cool for us to continue the conversation on is, like, what encourages behavior change. I think everything we've talked about today is a precipice, right? And what I appreciate about the conversation today is we talk a lot about self-awareness, but today we really dove in. I love this point of, you feel something's not right typically, right? And you may not always be able to identify what that is, but also, some of these things are not this exact science of, like, we have an Excel spreadsheet and if this and that. Although we shouldn't even be using Excel. We should just be using some cool programs. But that aside, y'all, what we're talking about here is also listen to what your body and your mind is telling you. And if things are not right, be curious, interrogate, ask the questions. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. On the self-awareness piece, number 2, listen. Like, once you have some idea of who you are and you're clear about how your behaviors may impact people, be clear about what you're willing to change and own it, and be open with your teams. Let them know, this is what you can expect from me. I recognize that when I do this, it might be annoying. I do it because, and I'll keep doing it because, or I'm going to work on it, right? So being transparent. And then the last piece I'll add here in our recap is, learning is a lifelong journey and is not quick. And if you are not feeling change quick, like within weeks or months, again, there's nothing wrong with you. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Oh my God, I loved today's conversation. I'm sure our content people are going to be like, what the heck? But you know what? It's going to be worth it, y'all. This is an amazing episode or two. And Sarah, we'll have you back. Thank you so much for being with us.
I would love to. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And like and subscribe and all the things we always ask you to do. We'll be back.
Here it is. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and leadership. That's the deal when you know what you're dealing with.